interesting stuff is going to happen after. All right.
Okay.
But it's 10 o'clock now. So do you want to?
It's working.
Oh, you want to get it working. It looks like it is. It says custom live streaming service.
Yeah, we're live. We're live, Cormac.
Oh, great. Okay. All right. It looks like we're live on air, Facebook, YouTube, and our friends are joining us here. So welcome, everyone. Let's just give people a few moments to get settled in.
Good morning.
Morning. Great. I'll just keep admitting people. It's going to take a few minutes, I think, to admit everybody. But why don't you, while we're waiting, take to the chat and say hello. Tell us where you're calling in from. Why does this conversation matter to you today? Why have you shown up? So you can do that in chat, and we'll get folks onboarded, or whatever the right expression is these days. Great to see so many of you.
Cormac, because I can't get hold of you in the chat, it's maxed out at 100 participants. It shouldn't have done. So I'm going to try and fix that now.
Okay.
I don't know why it's
changed. Set up for 300. I think they were telling us we're maxed out at 300. You're going to try and fix that, are you? Yeah, it looks like something is happening anyway, because we're at 101 now, I think. Oh no, hang on. All right, I'll leave that to you, Sean. Just bear with us a few seconds, folks. As I say, if you've just joined us, do take to the chat, say hi, tell us where you're from and why this conversation matters to you this morning. And if you're calling in from another time zone, tell us where you're coming from. You're very welcome. I think we've got some people from Australia. We've got some people from Canada and the Netherlands and Belgium. You're all very welcome. Sean, if you give me a heads up when you feel that the technical issues are ironed out. I'm reading your facial expressions and trying not to panic.
Because I've just got a deluge of emails. I've got about 50 from people.
I know. I can't get in. Oh dear. Okay.
Cormac, I think you might need to get Colleen to call me.
All right. Okay. I'm going to go dark for just 1 second, guys. Let me get this sorted out. Bear with us. Okay, I'm going to suggest, Sean, we go ahead, and I've every confidence that we'll figure all of this out. This is Jamboree style, okay? So you can just interpret that what's happening now is we're in a muddy field somewhere. It's rained, even though we were told the sun would shine, and the big marquee that everybody was going to gather in under has a hole in it. It's just, that's Jamboree. We're doing this Jamboree style, so welcome. We're going to get started. Sean, Colleen is on the case here, and also just to add to your woes, I've just got a message saying that it's not properly live streaming on YouTube either. So I think you're going to have some fun today, but that's the way we rock and that's the way we roll. We have about 100 people online so far, and just so you know what's happening, Zoom, which was set up to allow us 300, is blocking 200 people. So there's now 200 people trying to get into the Jamboree, and Sean is trying to work that out. So deep breath, Sean. Don't let it stress you too much. We'll get it figured. You're all very welcome here this morning, and I know some of you are calling in, as I said, from different time zones. I don't want to take too long because first and foremost, this is a celebration of your story and your community work. Really, the reason that I reached out and invited ABCD enthusiasts to be together across the UK was because it has struck me so much that over the last probably 10, 15 years, this citizen-centered neighborhood movement has grown and deepened in a way that has been beyond certainly anything I could have imagined possible. And that's because of people like you, because of your work, and because of what you've done in your own neighborhoods, in your own villages, and in the way you've shown up if you are practitioners. Each of you in different ways is doing something that I think is deepening democracy and is making the UK a better place to be. So I thought it would be fun to actually create some space to just cheer you on and to celebrate what you're doing. A couple of thoughts on this, because it's so hard to really set up something that's called a Jamboree. But I thought that what would be helpful to say at the beginning as we set this up is that this is really primarily about having a bit of fun. Now, that doesn't mean that I want to ignore everything that's going on in terms of the pandemic or other challenges that people are facing. There's a heck of a lot of stuff happening at the moment, which is frightening and scary and is creating all kinds of emotional wobbles for us. And even having said that, many of us are much more privileged than others. We're all in the same storm, but we're certainly not all in the same boat. So I don't want to go into the spirit of Jamboree without acknowledging that we have been through an incredibly tough year, and there will be more challenges to come. My own mother died on April 1st, and I had to watch the funeral on camera. I couldn't attend the funeral. And I am just one of many, many people who've had to do similar. So there's a lot to be said about, and there's a lot of heartbreaking stuff going on in our communities at the moment. But today is not about that. While we acknowledge that and we remember the people who aren't with us anymore, and also really cheer on the people who are doing incredible work at frontline staff and indeed people at neighborhood level to care and to continue to show that it is about the survival of the kindest, not the fittest. So we acknowledge them, we thank them, and with that, we celebrate too. Because there must be room for joy and there must be room for celebration. So take a deep breath, hold it for a second, and exhale. You're with your tribe. You're safe. It's a Jamboree. Let's have some fun. Who takes over from here? Who's next? I'm going to hand over to our circle of connectors. So whoever's going to take, we're passing the baton on. I think it's Sonny who's going to speak next. So you're going to be invited to be guided through this process by a circle of connectors. You'll meet each of them separately and they'll introduce you and take you through the program. Sonny, over to you.
So hello, thank you, Cormac. Hello, everyone. I invite you to say hello with your hands, everyone in the screen, to say hello. Yes. Hello, hello. Well, my name is Sonny, and I am absolutely honored to be with all of you. I know there are still people coming, joining us, and that is amazing, fascinating that ABCD is bringing all this amount of people together. Thank you, Cormac. I think one of the lessons that this year left for me was to be flexible and open mind. And I think with online and technical situation, we need to be like that, flexible, open mind. Not that sometimes we have control over everything, but sometimes we just need to let's go welcoming whatever is going to happen. Well, today I'm going to set up the theme for the first breakout session of today. We are going to be in group of 3. The invitation is to keep the conversation focused in one question that I am going to give you, but also to listen every single person in the group. It's going to be small groups, so that one is going to give you the opportunity to really listen each other. So make sure every single person in the group has a voice. Just listen. Be curious about the person that you are listening. And if you notice that someone is quiet or shy to share whatever they want to share, just invite that person to talk and to be with you. Okay, that is the invitation. Be curious, be creative, enjoy the Jamboree. So the question that we are going to have to be focused in every single group is what or share some highlights about your community building effort. Something that you really want to think like, oh, that one happened, and I really want to share that one with my group. And it's a highlight. It's something like I really want to share because I am passionate. And then enjoy, as I say, be curious, ask questions, and listening. That is the beauty of the ABCD approach. So then we are going to be in group of 3. I think Cormac is going to set up the groups and enjoy your time with each other.
That's great, Sonny. Do you want to just mention the length of time we have for this?
Oh, yes, sorry. We have 20 minutes in the group. 20 minutes, I think it's plenty time. So people really can listen each other and share your ideas. Remember what highlight you have about your community building effort. That is very important. And make sure every single person has a voice in the group. 20 minutes.
Sonny, thanks so much. And if anybody has just arrived in, just so you know, the technical issues have been sorted now. And so we have other people coming in. You're all very welcome. We're going into breakout now. If you haven't been assigned already, we're assigning you now. It's just because you've arrived in. Apologies for the technical issues and getting you signed up, folks. Really sorry about that. And we'll assign you as quickly as possible. You get a prompt to go to a breakout room now. Nearly there. Thanks for your patience with us. We should be getting prompts real soon, okay? Here we go.
Oh.
Heather? Nearly there. Okay. Right now, let's see. Wendy, how are you? Have you been assigned?
Yeah, my mouse is frozen at the moment, Cormac.
Okay, okay. No worries, no worries. And Jane, everybody else is okay, I assume. So you're going to sit out? Yeah, that's fine. I think when it's unassigned, it's...
I'm off.
All right, Wendy, take care. Enjoy the conversation. Let's just see how we're doing here. Assign Gwyneth. The numbers, yeah, the groups are going to be considerably bigger because of the flood of people who came in, but that's okay. Okay. Jackie and Philip, I think, are just coming in now. It's assigned Philip. Oh, Shauna, you okay?
Cormac.
Mm-hmm.
Hiya. Can I just say you don't need to give me co-host. You don't need to worry about
Right,
applying
okay.
that, because I can just unmute myself and
Great.
talk.
That's perfect.
It might be helpful if either you or Sean spotlight me so that it comes up as a big one, so that people can see it, and then they don't need to try finding it. If I'm talking though, it should, if people have got it on a speaker view, then they should be able to see. But I can suggest to people that they either turn to speaker view or try and pin me to their thing. So I don't mind doing that, so that just to help them to see it. So you don't need to worry about.
Sounds like a great idea. All right.
Okay. All right. We've got enough technical stuff to be dealing with.
Well, indeed, yeah. Anyway, there's good modeling on how to remain calm under pressure. So I think everything's good now.
Testing you to the limit.
Thanks, Anna.
All good, Cormac?
Yeah,
All in?
yeah. I think everybody is in. There's a few. There'll inevitably be a few people still arriving, but I think at least we have the. I'm just going to call it at 10 minutes now. I think because we're going to be way over time otherwise. There's a few people now just arriving in. So,
I didn't go into a breakout room because normally when that happens, I don't get back in or something happens, and I was so nervous about it. I'd love to be, once my session is over, I'll go into a breakout room.
It's not a problem.
Don't want to add to your woes because of my lack of technical know-how.
Yeah, we'd figure it out. There we go. Okay. And what we've ended up with actually is we've ended up with groups of 5. Hi, Sean. How you doing? You all right?
Okay. It all seems fixed.
What happened? It was set up as 100 as opposed to 300, was it?
I'll discuss with you privately when we're not streaming.
All right, fair enough.
We're going to divulge some confidential business things.
Okay, no problem.
But yeah, I mean, the problem's solved, and I've emailed everyone back who's emailed me. So if you're watching this live stream now, who has emailed me, saying that they've got the link but weren't able to get in, then that problem should be now fixed. And if you retry it, then you should be able to get in and we'll let you in. Apologies for the delay.
Great. Thanks, Sean. And the live streaming to YouTube, is that fixed?
When I checked the live stream to YouTube, it was working fine.
Okay. Yeah, it's working for me as well. So yeah, okay, that's fine. Cool. Thanks, Sean. I've just given people 10 minutes, Sean, about a minute ago. Just mindful of our time, really. I think we need to bring everybody back, quite honestly, by about 10:30, just to try and make some endeavor to get back on track again, just so you know what's happening. The groups have also gone to 5 now because we had this influx of folks. So, hi, Hannah, welcome. You're on mute, Hannah.
Sorry, hello.
Hi.
I was just watching the YouTube stream and I saw your message, so I thought I'd try again.
It's working, yes.
Yeah,
That's
it works.
good.
It's working well.
You are empirical evidence. That's great.
Yeah.
Welcome, Hannah. I'm not going to put you in a breakout room, Hannah, because it may not be very fulfilling for you.
No, that's great. That's fine.
If you're okay to hang with us, that'd be great.
Thank you.
How did that look on live stream? Did that look like a complete chaos, or did it come across okay?
No, it looked really smooth. Like everyone was on the screen and then everyone just started disappearing.
Oh,
but
nice.
yes, you came across very calm and collected, which I wouldn't have been, I don't think.
Well, yeah, it's good. It's good having a good team of people who know how to fix these things behind the scenes.
Yes, lifesavers.
Yeah, it creates, well, you couldn't have set it up better. It's real Jamboree style. So, all good. Good morning, sir. Calling in from Age UK, Bradford. Might actually just get people when they come back as well to put their names on their box if they can, their profile. Jonathan, welcome.
Hi.
Jonathan, folks have gone to a breakout, so it's not that you've arrived with only a group of 7 people. People have gone to breakout. Sorry if you had any technical issues getting on this morning.
Sure.
Real Jamboree style. We kind of went a little bit into complexity at a very early stage. but they're coming back in about 5 minutes' time. Where are you calling in from today, Jonathan?
Canterbury, in Kent. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, welcome. Good to have you with us.
Yeah, great. Good.
You have time for a cuppa if you want to grab one.
Okay, I'll get a quick coffee. Yeah. See you soon.
Cheers. Hi, Jane.
Hi, sorry. I had a power cut there and
okay.
off. So I was in a breakout room enjoying it.
Reboot and come back in again. Well, no worries.
Yeah.
I think we have Sarah with us, and then let us communicate. No worries, you're in now, James. It's just your power went down, did it?
Yeah. So the power went down and it cut off the internet to the house as well because it was.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Flash, but it just disturbed everything. So I reported it and then I've been able to sign back in. So yeah.
Good stuff. Were you in a breakout room when that happened?
Yes, I was.
Oh, good. Okay, well, at least you got to meet some people in a small group anyway for a few minutes. You'll get the next one. Okay, we're going to bring people back in about 3 minutes. So we'll... Sean, when people are watching on live stream, remember you were suggesting that they could share questions during the breakout sessions. Is that still possible? How do they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a chat box on the right-hand side. For me, it's on the right-hand side for both the YouTube and the Facebook. And the Facebook's already had a little bit of interaction. So people can write questions or things in there if that's what you wanted to do.
Okay. Thanks, Sean. And folks, if you've just arrived on Zoom with us, welcome. It's great to have you with us. In about 3 minutes' time, a little less, in fact, we're going to bring people back from the breakout rooms, and so you'll meet a few hundred people at that point. Sean, can I check? Have you given me co-hosting or full hosting rights now?
You're the full host. I'm not a host at all, so you might want to just make me co-host.
So I'll make you co-host then, just so we have backup. And you can keep an eye on folks coming in as well. Okay, I am going to, in about 30 seconds, give people a prompt to return. Okay. Hi, Carol.
Hi, Cormac.
See you. Okay, let's. Sean, if there are questions coming in through Facebook and YouTube and folks want to have an interactive session with me and some of the host members that stay behind, maybe you could just give us a heads up on what are the key themes that are emerging. We'll pick those up then. So obviously during FaceTime or during breakout time, Facebook and YouTube folks that are participating won't be able to participate in the breakout, but we will try our best to have a conversation and to interact with you. So if you do have questions, please feel free to share them. Folks are now coming back. Welcome back from the breakout session. We're going to have a number of those breakout sessions. And when Sonia is back in the room, she is going to facilitate a brief harvest. So Sonny, whenever you're with us, over to you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. We have an amazing conversation in the group. And I hope you all enjoy your groups and listen to each other, the amazing stories that we have to share. Well, we have 15 minutes, that is not too much, to share what was happening in the group. So I'm going to invite everyone to write in the chat, what happened, what was a highlight for you in the group. Probably invite 2 or 3 people, depending on the time, to actually unmute the microphone and share with us what happened in the group. But you are very welcome, all of you, to share that one in the chat. So we are going to have like a narrative there about what's happening. We are going to write the history of this Jamboree in the chat. And also welcome if someone wants to share with us, with all of us. So just unmute your microphone and you can tell us what happened in your group. We have really nice.
Can I take the initiative? Thank you. You can tell I'm an eager beaver. It's nice to see you, by the way. Good morning, everyone. So good to be with you this morning. I was really excited in our group. We were just sharing some stories, particularly around how communities really resolve their own, issues. And someone actually said they don't actually see them as issues. It's just something that you work through, and communities can sort of resolve these things for themselves. There was a real kind of mutual understanding about that. I'd really like to share, I wanted to say this, it was inspired from something that Angela said actually, where I spoke about this church that has done this project, the Love Thy Neighbour project, and it's particularly around sharing food. But a lot of people come, obviously, for food poverty reasons. You refer food parcels, etc. But it's not really that standard. And I had the privilege to hear from the church elder himself last week, and he said week after week there'd be these enormous queues of people waiting in line to collect their food parcel and things like that, and people started to share their gifts. Some guy, it was a woman actually, she said that she'd like to help out with security. She's a security guard and she's not working at the moment, and there was a chef as well, and you know the story, giving gifts. But there was one story that really hit me, and it was they were in the queue, and the church elder said that there was a little bit of commotion going on. There was some sort of unrest, and he went to see what was happening, and some people were sort of talking because someone had decided to go past the queue and just went straight to the table where the food was. And you could hear people were talking before, typically British thing, I think, talking before actually saying something. And then someone said, what are you doing? And it turns out that that person got out their bag and put food on the table and then walked to the back of the queue and joined the queue, which, that really struck me. And I wanted to share that and see what you think.
Thank you, James. That's a beautiful thing to share. Thank you. And it's really nice to see you, the Jamboree. Okay, I would like to invite any other person who wants just to unmute the microphone and share with us what happened in the group. And remember, you still can share in the chat, that actually there are amazing things. You can have a look to the chat. It's also really nice conversation happening there. But if someone just wants to unmute the microphone, we have a few minutes to share.
I don't mind going.
Lovely. Yes, welcome.
Hi, we had a really nice discussion, and I think the thing that struck us all, and I was certainly sharing it from the perspective of York, is how storytelling and the power of stories is really helping to change the narrative informed by good ABCD practice. And there was a lot of interest around, how you can approach storytelling to gain traction and impact in your place, and how they should be written up with and alongside citizens. But yeah, lots of interesting stories and storytelling, and how that seems to proliferate, being, you know, seen a degree of proliferation over the last 3 or 4 years in particular, and that is taking place across sector, across the public, voluntary, community, social enterprise sectors, and with people. So really good discussion around the power of stories.
Thank you. Thank you, Joy. Thank you very much. We have one more that want to share with us, and keep an eye in the chat. It's amazing also stories happening there. Really nice conversations in the chat. But I would like to invite another person, one more, to share what happened in your group.
I don't mind, Sonia.
Good, good, lovely.
I think what came very strongly through from our group, and it was interesting that we actually cover the whole country from sort of Hampshire all the way up to Scotland. And what was coming through from each of us was kindness, and the fact that communities coming together, and the fact that it was not to the communities, but with the communities, and that we were working alongside, and that whatever we were doing together. And I think it was just a really beautiful way of putting it, that actually those acts of kindness were coming together and enabling things to happen by working alongside.
Oh, thank you so much. That's lovely. Thank you, everyone. Have a look to the chat. It's amazing thing happening there also, amazing conversation. So have a look. I think we are going to be in the second part of the Jamboree, of this party, this community party. So I'm going to pass the microphone to Paul.
Thank you, Sonny. So hello, everybody. My name is Paul. I live and work in a neighbourhood called Furs and Bromford in Birmingham. It's so lovely to be amongst so many different people from all around the country. It's my pleasure to introduce our first keynote speaker. We're going to hear from a lady called Fatima, who's a mother, a grandmother, and a community activist, mental health specialist, and a Grenfell community member. So Fatima's family are Grenfell survivors, and today she's going to share her experiences as a mental health practitioner and as a community resident. So she's someone who's in that position, that liminal space between being in the system and in the community. So Fatima's going to speak for a little while. I would suggest let's continue to use the chat, throw in your comments, your questions. After she's finished, we will have a few minutes to harvest some thoughts and questions, and again hear from probably 2 or 3 people with either a question or something that resonates from what we've heard. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Fatima.
Well, thank you, Paul. Thank you so much. And thank you for inviting me to this wonderful occasion. And it's really lovely to be amongst so many people with a similar shared vision about community. So thank you. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my story. As Paul has mentioned, I've been an active member of the North Kensington community for over 20 years, having worked in the NHS way before the Grenfell tragedy. And I had left the trust, the Central Northwest London Mental Health Trust, I think probably about 5 years before the Grenfell fire. And I think I was asked actually to come back when the trust that I worked for was trying to respond to that tragedy, because it fell within their patch in Central Northwest London. So I suppose since that day, that fateful day of the 14th of June, 2017, I found myself really playing many roles. As Paul said, a grandmother of Grenfell survivors, probably a system integrator, something I've also been described as, a community connector, a human bridge. And these aren't my definition, these are labels that people have insisted on or have felt appropriate for me. A consultant, service provider, service user, community advocate. So as you can see, there may be roles that probably are true, but others have been kind of, that label's been given to me. But really, I think what I found myself in a default position since that day is really playing a major role in translating system issues and solutions into community language, because there was a disparity between that, and community issues and solutions into system language. Don't quite know how I did that, but that's I suppose what I was trying to achieve. I think this was critical for me. It was really important so that we could move beyond the initial anger and chaos in the immediate aftermath of Grenfell into more kind of constructive dialogue with community voices are truly and genuinely present, and that they are at the forefront of decision making and every conversation and every decision, instead of us kind of having this, rightly so, this pent up anger and our need to vent and to articulate that anger. So I suppose the role that I was playing and I'm playing now, they're not new things. I was saying the same things way before the fire. The solutions I was putting forward were not new solution, but this time I felt it was personal, because on that tragic night, I stood with many other families and my community members in horror, watching a tower burn, helpless, really, and unable to respond not only to my grandchildren's screams for help, and my daughter-in-law, so they were caught up, unfortunately. Two of my grandchildren and my daughter-in-law did escape, but unfortunately they were poorly for many weeks. They were in an induced coma for many weeks, but thankfully and mercifully they escaped. But 72 men, women and children all perished that night. So the time for talking was, for me, over. It was time to act for my family and for my community. It was a time for a different type of conversation, and I'm not the only one that's been on that journey. So I just wanted to share that sort of context with you. I think the new type of conversations wasn't about how we do better engagement or co-production, or it wasn't about how do we reach hard to reach groups of people, because in my mind, in truth be told, communities were never hard to reach. We've just been easy to ignore, and that our public services are just too far removed. So there's no question that we were hard to reach. I think the new conversations for me was more about involved us working together and truly hearing each other as individuals and as groups, willing to step outside of our role, and organization making sense together on how to move forward, and being absolutely clear and brave enough to make decisions that were for the benefit of the community that we serve and not for the system. I think the next step for me, with many others, has been about creating opportunities to build and repair some of those damaged, often perceived, but also quite contemptuous relationships between service providers, decision makers and community members. So especially among residents and tenants of RBKC at that time. More critically, I think I really wanted to inspire others by sharing my reflections and of my lived experience in finding hope and generosity and compassion, and get a strong sense of community leadership. I wanted to share with you an example of a true exemplar of a community asset, of how ordinary people can be mobilized into action and determined to achieve their own priorities. I've heard so many wonderful stories already this morning, and I'm sure we will hear many others. But the example I want to share with you is that of a group of people that organized themselves in the immediate aftermath of the fire. They call themselves Grenfell United, and they are essentially a family association made up of people that lived in the tower, some of them bereaved and some survivors of that fire. They set that up to support each other because the council and the systems didn't know how to support them properly. So they set themselves up to support each other in the initial few days, but also to really go on to develop a campaign for justice and change so that nothing like this ever happens again. And they did so with the support and the love and the compassion of their community. So it was community that first responded to those people that came out of that tower, run in, some walk in, some being taken out in ambulances. And for a few weeks, it was the community that absolutely, covered that community in a sort of a hug of compassion and humanity. And I think one of the things that this tragedy has unearthed is how ordinary people who endured horror of that night have found themselves in both powerful and strategic positions. An ordinary group of neighbours and families from average and moderate backgrounds, from many diverse faith, ethnic and racial backgrounds, with no involvement in politics as we define it, who found themselves in extraordinary situations where they were sitting around tables with directors, senior managers, clinical leads, politicians, commissioners, both locally and nationally, prime ministers. They've become a force that put pressure on the government and council to influence change for the betterment of their community and society. They were meeting with heads of government and country and putting pressure on them and succeeding, actually. So though we still have, and they and the North Kensington community still have a very long way to justice, their work so far has allowed some laws and policies to be changed, and in so doing, saving many lives. I'm sure you may have been hearing over the last few weeks about the cladding scandal. So these ordinary people were behind that kind of pressure on government to change, to remove all of the cladding. They have lobbied and marched for key governmental policies change, both locally and what they've done, I feel, is truly amazing and a real example of how resourceful individuals that make up our communities across the country, and a testament to everything that we will share today, is that there are real opportunities for community leaders to really change things for the better for their community, no matter how small. I mean, it doesn't need to take a tragedy really to mobilize community voice. And I think COVID, just like the Grenfell, has highlighted the resolve and the commitment to communities up and down the country to respond to the needs of their local neighbourhoods. The Grenfell community have a long way to go in challenging change and in fight for justice. But I feel that, really hopeful that the narrative has shifted, the community has found its voice, and I truly feel there is no going back. Thank you for allowing me to share my story with you.
Thank you so much, Fatima. Can we give some Zoom love and appreciation for that story, and such a really powerful story. Shall we, I've been monitoring the chat, as I think Becky had a great question, if she feels okay to unmute and chat and offer the question to Fatima.
Hello, Fatima. How lovely to see you. So one of the challenges I think I've got is that this is a local challenge, Fatima, which is we've been self-organising around a number of things locally that really matter to people: food poverty, loneliness and isolation, and cleaning up our river. A range of things that are local people's problems and issues and concerns. However, and that was working really well with hundreds of people involved in loads and loads of different initiatives. And then there became grant funding, particularly for the Free School Meals Initiative. And our local councillor took it on to bid for the money and got the money into one charity within the town, and has taken it on as a political thing to rescue the community, to, back to that sort of feudal councillor model. And it's patronising, and it's doing and it's providing people with 2 sausages and 2 tins of tomatoes and a recipe cards if they couldn't possibly cook sausages and tomatoes together. It's really, really undermined the sort of self-organising, collaborative, asset-based model that we were developing as a community here. And because he's got the money, he just seems to be able to walk away with the initiative and take it from this self-organizing community. There's hundreds of people cooking and providing and working with, and doing it collaboratively with these communities. Any ideas?
Is that Becky? Becky?
Yes, Becky.
Any ideas in relation to funding and co-funding?
Well, I suppose it's how do you wrestle it back? Because what he's done is he's grabbed power using the funding and turned us back into the old world of a deficit model around working with families that are in poverty.
I think, Becky, you and I have had these conversations before, haven't we, in terms of, how do we enable us systems to truly hear the voice of the community?
Yeah.
And I suppose we need to, as systems, so for example, I was sharing with my breakout room colleagues about, there is this idea that, systems will continue commissioning, they will continue to fund the way that they think funding should be distributed. One of the things that we've done in Grenfell, and it's actually put us in good stead in COVID, is to really connect to communities that can challenge that. We can't challenge it on our own. We need other voices that can challenge that. And communities need to be given platforms for them to actually have those conversations. We've at the moment just started to think about joint commissioning, and community-based commissioning is what we're trying to do in RBKC. So I suppose you really need to build bridges into your community and get your community voices to join you, and insist that in any communication that they are around that table and that they are part of that key making decision.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Becky.
Fatima. And I mean, one of the things I've been quite interested in is that Frome model of having depoliticized town councillors, so taking politics out of it, because this is definitely around a political party wanting to claim credit for rescuing the community.
I can add to that, because I work from I've done a lot of work in Frome, and people might like to see Peter McFadden from Flat Pack Democracy on the Survival of the Kindest podcast. But one of the major points is that in terms of parish councils, which are town councils, becoming politically activated and using a model like Flat Pack Democracy is a really powerful way of getting over the domination of political parties and the lack of democracy that goes with it. And I think it was a key part of the Frome model. And I just, I think there's a meeting place of ABCD and Flat Pack Democracy, and it's joining them together and getting proper, true local democracy, looking at the examples of Frome, and I know there are plenty of other examples around the country. I think that's really powerful, and it would make so much difference.
Thank you, Julian. Fatima, any response to Julian?
I think, as I said, and as I've experienced, there are many strong leaders that can actually influence. I think it's how do we, like I said, do we truly engage with this? We're all hearing at the moment, because of COVID, we've all kind of seen that community sits at the heart of any, whether it's a vaccine promotion or program. We need community voice in the way we do things, and that cuts across all aspects of our society, including politics. And the more we can put in the human aspect into politics, and I know that might be a very difficult thing to do at times, but we need to keep trying, and we need to allow those wonderful community leaders that I know we have. We've just got to scratch the surface and give them the right platforms, and I know that we can make change happen.
The one thing I wrote down was human bridge. I think that was an amazing description of that kind of, and humanizing this process between the community and the system. I think that's one of the most powerful things I'd taken from your story.
Absolutely.
Guys, we've probably got 3 or 4 minutes. If one more person wants to say a comment, unmute, or a question for Fatima. if somebody wants to unmute or
Hello, can I ask a question?
go for it.
I work for the National Trust, and we're wanting to engage with our local communities around one of our biggest estates as we start to develop it to involve the local community. So I was interested. So we're the big organisation with the money, and I don't want to go down that route that's just been described. So I wondered, what people's advice was to start the process off of finding those movers and shakers, the right people in the communities, the right community groups. It's quite daunting I'm an ecologist, so it's quite daunting from my perspective.
I think, given we've got just a few minutes, and I'm happy to, at a later point, one of the key things that I've experienced is that unless you know your community, unless you truly know your community and what it's made up of, you're actually denying, not you, but systems are denying themselves a real resource. So if we go into a community from a deficit perspective, we won't look for those voices. So if we turn the lens slightly and really do a good quality mapping of local, sort of grounded, trusted organizations, neighborhoods, GPs, mosques, synagogues, schools, unless we do a proper understanding of who our communities are made up of, we won't know the abundance of resourcefulness within that. So that will be the first step, is to actually get to know your community, build a relationship. And it's no good leaving it up to standardized engagement people that we employ to act as buffers between us and our community. It's really people like yourselves and all of those leaders to roll the sleeves up and go out into the community, a bit like politicians do during election time, but only this time do it genuinely. So I would say that would be my first advice, is get out there, have a think, have a look, go around to your community and see who, because you'll find that there are people with, open doors, and they want to make a difference, just that they've been ignored or they've been silenced by the system protocols and policies.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Fatima. That was an amazing conversation. And I think, as with ever, we always run out of time, and there's never enough time for all the questions that everyone's got. So I think someone's put in the chat that we are hoping to continue. I know not everyone uses Twitter, but we want to continue the conversation afterwards using the hashtag ABCD Jamboree. So continue the questions, continue the conversation. And Fatima is on Twitter. So I guess if Fatima's okay with that.
Absolutely. And thank you for your wonderful comments on chat. I haven't been able to read them, but thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this and to meet you all.
So we're going to go into a break. We've got 5 minutes. So go and get a refreshment or go to the toilet if you need that. And we'll convene back here at 11:05, if that's okay with everybody. So have a good break, and we'll see you back in 5 minutes. Thank you.
Keys. Keys. Keys.
We can hear you, Sue.
Sorry.
No, don't say sorry. I'm just telling you, just in case.
Thank you.
Oh, hello.
I can see you.
Do you want to be?
Anyone feel like a sing song while we wait for everyone to regroup?
Great.
Having tried a sing song with a dementia group I work with, Zoom's delay doesn't lend itself to group singing, I'm afraid. We learned that lesson the hard way, trying to sing Christmas carols. Yeah, it was an adventure in itself.
It's all the more fun because of that.
There was silent nights happening like 3 different times all the way across the Zoom room. It was quite something.
Snap, Charlotte. We did the same. It was awful. It was how not to sing.
I spent most of it laughing, and I really actually admire the commitment of our communities because they were committing hard to what they were singing, and I couldn't quite commit.
Wonderful. Singing in the round.
I would like to add something to that. There's a wonderful singer and conductor in England. She's called Jane Harris, and she sings together with people, and she composes layers of music, and that you can sing yourself, but you hear 4 different voices around you. So that's her website is called Songways. So if you love to sing, please visit her website. She is fantastic. She's very kind, and she's creating a singing community. And lots of people are joining her from America, England, Scotland, Ireland, Netherlands. So then you can sing with 45 people, and it's not a mess. It's real peace. It's party. So I would like to say that to you, and I hope you join.
What was her name? Sorry.
Her name is Jane Harris.
Jane Harris. Thank you.
Jane Harris, and her website is called Songways. You can't miss it. Songways.
Songways. Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah. So
wonderful. Welcome back, everybody.
Fun. Yeah.
Sorry
for interrupting. So
that's okay. No problem. No problem. It's good to see the good tips being passed around. So we're back. Welcome.
Yeah.
And over to Sue and to Jessie to take us into the next section.
Thank you very much, Cormac. And can I start by thanking Angela for warning me that my microphone was on and everybody could hear my husband asking if he can get the fire ready or will it be too noisy. So I'd like to apologize about that. Hello, everybody. Jessie and I are from Pembrokeshire, West Wales, and I think there are quite a few of us from Pembrokeshire here, showing how important communities are to us. We are actually from Solver Care, which connects people in the village, enabling older people to stay living in their homes, stay out of hospital, stay out of care homes as well. We have a very active elected community council from which many of our great ideas spring from. And of course, we faced a lot of challenges that rural communities in the UK have faced over the last few years. And as Cormac pointed out, the pandemic has been devastating and added to a very uncertain future for us. But there is a silver lining in everything. And in our corner of the world, and I think in Wales generally, I can't speak for the rest of the UK, communities have really organised themselves over the last year and have created networks to share ideas and support each other. They've also started to collaborate with neighbouring communities to strengthen their voice when that voice is actually needed. And very exciting, I think, is that public sector organisations are keen to work equally and collaboratively with communities. So new friendships have been made, new understandings developed. And we see this in Pembrokeshire because we work with two great organisations, Pembrokeshire Association of Voluntary Services and PlanEd, in working together to make change happen. So this has really energised us, and it takes me to the topic of our next breakout session. What has energised you? We would like you to go into your breakout sessions and look at what the possibilities are for the future and what can we build on in terms of our previous local world. So we will have 20 minutes for the breakout sessions. It's really the same process as before. You'll be automatically sent into that group, into your groups. You'll come back after 20 minutes and there'll be opportunities for us to take some of the key points of your discussion. And so far, those feedback sessions have been absolutely super. There have been some really interesting points made, and I certainly feel energized by them. So that really just leaves me to say, you know, when you come back, please use the chat function. And then Jessie, my co-host, will look across the screen, suggest people to unmute and offer some thoughts. and she will also look at the chat box, and she just texted me to say she'll also try and reach some of you on YouTube and Facebook. So she's clearly a multitasker. So I'm going to leave it to Sean or Cormac to now split you up into your groups. I'll see you in 20 minutes.
I'm loving this picture that you're drawing behind you. Perhaps we can spotlight this for the live stream for briefly.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's fine.
Is it when it's a small? It's harder to see, but now it's big. We can actually see some of what you've got there.
Yeah, and I'll take it off my stand at the end and bring the camera over so that people can see some of the stuff close up. But yeah, it'll grow during the course of the session, and then the sheet that was once a blank sheet will be full of people's contributions.
That's beautiful.
Well, thank you for contributing your gift there. That's amazing.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I enjoy it. It's lovely. I just love immersing myself in these kinds of conversations. It's a real privilege just to be able to listen and absorb. And I guess what I'm doing is making sense and meaning for me. But hopefully that makes it meaningful for others as well.
Are we going to get like a photographs of it as well?
Yeah. So what I do is I'll scan it. So we'll have a digital image, and then that's there for people to use as they want to use it. It'll be a visual minute of the conversation, but it may also help people to have other conversations with people if they're wanting to talk about what needs to happen for them locally. You know, it might make some good points that will open up conversations. So yeah, it'll be readily available to people.
Sue, can I just say well done on how you set that breakout up. That's fantastic, and great to hear your comments as well around all the great citizen-led action in Wales. And thank you.
Thank you very much. I was a little bit thrown because before I didn't have my microphone on mute and everybody could hear a conversation going on in my house.
I heard that. I didn't actually hear the conversation. I heard what you said afterwards. It sounded absolutely fine. I have a friend who's a very well-known speaker on the circuit who stepped away during a breakout to have a full-blown blazing argument with his wife, with all of the rich texture that can come with that at times. So what you did was mild. There are lots of people watching live now, and I wonder, might it be a good opportunity for you and Jessie to say a little bit more about what's happening as you understand it and experience it around citizen-led action and community-led action in Wales, because it's around social care, but it's also around the environment. So communities owning and putting, electricity back in the grid and all kinds of amazing things happening in Wales.
Yeah, I think that, talking about things that are energizing us, that communities have started to take a much more holistic approach. And I think in a sense that was happening anyway, but the pandemic has speeded it up, in that we no longer work in compartmentalized ways. I think it's right to start with a focus if you're starting with strengths, but we've suddenly started to widen our view of the world. looking at, for example, how can we secure assets here, built assets that are currently owned by, or managed, should I say, by the local authority, but is rightfully ours. So how to engage in policy that brings those assets in. In Solva, a tiny place, we are building our own housing development, 20 affordable rental properties in order to enable our younger people to stay, and also for adapted housing to be available for older people, for affordable homes for young families, so they can stay in a beautiful part of the world in their local community where before they were priced out in the market. Because of the pandemic, we're also looking at, local food production. We know we live so far away from, we have a small shop actually here, but we do live far away from food supply. So we're looking at being much more self-sufficient with food. So, I mean, these are all examples that we see across Pembrokeshire, in fact, across Wales, that there has been a sudden resurgence or energizing of communities in the belief that, in fact, that's where the so-called recovery is going to stem from. For us, and I speak for Jessie can come in as well, but I think there is an optimism amongst all the heartache and difficulty, Brexit, the threat to the UK breaking up, all the things that unsettle us. There is comfort and optimism that we can build something locally that will make us feel well and happy. We've been lucky because we've always been in a part of the world here where there's been what I call a strong community spirit, looking after each other, neighbourliness, building on neighbourliness in different ways. But I think we're looking at something different. And I didn't necessarily agree with the previous speakers about removing politics. I think we need to understand politics. We need to work within it, and we need to have a voice, because politics isn't going to go away. And it's having that strength of voice and togetherness that will create a difference. And in parts of Wales, community councils are getting together and becoming a real force. In regenerating their communities and actually controlling what happens, to the benefit of their communities. But I'll hand over to Jessie, because Jessie has got massive experience in horticulture. She's recently chaired a rather abortive project here. We tried to buy a tenant farm that was being sold, and for a year we worked on it and unfortunately lost it. And she's very active in Solva Care as well. So, Jessie, I don't know whether you've got anything to
Yeah,
say.
I think possibly an abortive project. I like that. I think possibly building upon what Sue has expressed about that sort of holistic sensibility of the components of community, and at the sort of the heart of it in some ways is democracy. It's local democracies. It's those elected members having a capacity to be able to represent kind of clearly, compassionately the kind of the views of a population. And I think in Pembrokeshire, the town and community councils are gathering strength. The farm that Sue spoke about was a county farm, so it was an asset belonging to the population, but under the kind of the power of the local authority. And there was an opportunity there to be able to develop a community resource. And I think it was very much before COVID, but I think what's been emphasised subsequently is that the opportunities for sharing these assets and for actually offering them as place-based assets to communities it's a kind of strange vindication that there would certainly be opportunities there. And it leads me into thinking about horticulture and agriculture and these notions of what are the components that make a flourishing community. And I really feel I've been very much involved in the Welsh Real Food and Farming Conference in Wales, and I work for the Land Workers Alliance. And so there are, I don't work for I'm a coordinator, but that having a relationship with where our food is produced and a relationship with the environment and the landscape are really key components of how a community that is flourishing and is confident can express itself. And the work that we're doing is a broad, holistic spread of which that's a part. Do you have any thoughts on that, Cormac or Sean, or about those kind of those aspects, kind of that in relation to what creates something that is flourishing, and agriculture and food is a part of it?
Absolutely. I mean, at the heart of the ABCD ideal is the idea of interdependence. A worm turns over, I think, about 6 tons of soil every month. They never ask for praise. They're largely never seen. It's a lot like community. So I think a lot of these assets, whether they're natural or they're built, handmade and homemade, are absolutely at the heart of who we are. We forget sometimes that we are as much the land we move through as the nature that moves through us. That we talk about ourselves as disconnected from nature, but humans are part of nature. We are nature. And when we become disconnected from it, when our hands are removed from the soil and removed from the abundance of the apple tree that never asks for anything in return, I think that's when we become dehumanized.
Yeah.
So I totally agree.
Yeah, I think that I need to sort of, in a sense, qualify. I use the strong word there, abortive project, but from that experience came some of the good things that I've talked about, because there was it even made national news, the battle of the community with the local authority over Trecadogan Farm. And afterwards, people are decent people, they said, we can't let this happen again. We've got to work together. And as a consequence, and that experience, there is now a move towards a policy for a much fairer process for asset transfers, rather than a local authority going out and putting something out to auction, which then makes it very difficult for a community to compete. So again, I think the pandemic has maybe, speeded up the process, but the good thing that has come out is the willingness of public sector organisations to talk. That could be because of money, but I think even with austerity and tougher times to come, collaboration, discussion, co-production can only be a good thing. And it's high time it happened and moved from, the rhetoric to the reality, because we're great in Wales on all singing, all dancing policies. It's making it happen that is the challenge.
I think one of the things that may be helpful for people listening on YouTube and on Facebook is to say that, in essence, what can often happen is, as we focus our attention on trying to be in better relationship with outside actors, sometimes we do that at the expense of being in better relationship with our neighbors and the environment, and indeed the economy and the culture around us. Now, anytime you have to pay to be in a relationship with an outside actor, with the relationships you have locally, it's too high a price.
Oh,
you understand? Yeah. So it is critical to say that what we're hearing here so far in our conversation is definitely a conversation that's about how to be in right relationship with external assets. What I would like to emphasize, and I think Jesse and Sue are touching on it, is we must also, and this is foundational, we must also be in right relationship with our neighbors, even the ones, and particularly actually the ones we disagree with, and in right relationship with the land and the economy, whatever. So I think you're right to review the idea that any effort to do that is abortive, because all efforts to do that are growth efforts, they're learning efforts, they're nurturing efforts for sure. But I do feel sometimes that because there's such a Herculean, heroic effort needed to deal with bureaucracy, the time spent dealing with bureaucracy is time lost living. And we must never trade one off with the other, I think. And actually, I think we have. I think that's part of the problem. Now, I loved what you were saying as well, Sue, around the pandemic has, in real effects, it has made the institutional world hit its limits. So they've literally run into a brick wall, and it's given them a walloping. And I think in the process of the institutional world hitting its limits, we're seeing the ascendance, almost like a boon of citizen-led, community-driven efforts. And these two things are like a hydraulic relationship. They're connected. As the bureaucracy goes down, often what we see is the ascendance, the going up in Pembrokeshire and other places of community. And this is a constant dance, you know. So one of the questions might be, how do we keep supporting that citizen-led action and keep making sure the bureaucracy doesn't overwhelm it?
Yeah.
So it's a balance, as always.
Yeah, I think it is a balance. And I think the alliance that I mentioned before is, if you like, trying to promote that engagement and understanding. But, you know, we all live in communities. And as you say, Cormac, we need to, you know, balance where the effort lies. I think what we're talking about here is often termed as a culture change, isn't it? And I've got no feel for how long that will take to bear fruit. But I think the climate is good, you know, in the sense that people are willing and are intent on making it work. But we'll probably see the benefits much further down the line. I hope it will be fast, though.
Beautiful. Sean, have we any questions aside from what we've discussed coming in that you've noticed?
Yeah, one interesting question that came up was, what are your thoughts, Cormac, on communities being hard to reach or easy to ignore? Which, referring back to Fatima's.
Yeah. Well, it's such a, there's truth in it. You can just recognize it when you hear it, that communities are easy to ignore. A lot of communities are also easy to ignore because they're not connected yet into powerful communities. So many of our places are filled with local neighbors that often aren't connected with each other in ways that they can be powerful as well as compassionate. So I think it's very hard to, you know, hear a lot of this turn of phrase, community engagement, which I'm very cautious about, because typically I think when, you know, it's said, it's an institution trying to engage with the community around the institutional agenda. And some people do that community engagement incredibly well. And so they get past that hard to reach barrier. But I think when people do community building, they recognize you can't engage a community until a community has first been built. And that's about supporting the community to be in relationship, to get connected, to figure out how issues of representativeness, of participation, of every voice being heard. And that's a process of building community. One of the things I'm very sad about is how we have siloed so many really important issues, you know, and a lot of what we talk about when we talk about hard to reach are groupings that have been siloed by their condition or by a label that's been put on them by outside agencies. What's interesting is that when we actually get in relationship with neighbors and we start building up those relationships, people aren't hard to reach. The conversations may be hard to have, but largely it's about relationship. What I loved about what Fatima was saying is that she took something that's often seen as a technical issue, and she said it's not technically hard to do. It's morally and relationally hard to do. You've got to have the moral imagination, and you've got to be committed in the long haul to relationships and to stick with them, even when it's hard, and maybe especially when it's hard.
Cormac, should we be calling?
We should
be calling people back, because I think we've.
Yeah, I already have.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No. I already have, Sue. But I think it's important to say that a way of thinking about that is that the neighborhood becomes the unit of change. You know, if we're working more intently at neighborhood level, nobody is hard to reach. If you've got a 3 to 10 year committed relationship with a neighborhood, and you're not trying to get an institutional outcome, but you're building neighborhood, or you're supporting the neighborhood to build itself with what's strong, so it can address what's wrong. Well, it's a different relationship completely then. So Sue and Jesse, folks are going to be back in about 10 seconds, and it's over to you to greet them and harvest. And we have about 7 minutes on this, guys.
Yeah.
All back, Sue.
Welcome. Yeah, welcome back, everybody. I hope you've had a really good discussion and you feel energized by talking about energy. I'm going to hand over now to Jessie, my co-host, because Jessie will be looking across the screens for volunteers to say a few words about their discussions in their groups. And also Jessie is looking at the chat box as well to see whether there are any points that she can feed in. So Jessie, could I hand over to you, please?
Yeah, I'm very happy to. Yeah, would anybody like to talk about something that they came up in their group that energized them? I'll look in the chat too. Please feel free to contribute there, and I'm looking across at YouTube eagerly for any suggestions that are being made there also. Would anybody like to start?
I could talk about our group.
Great.
My name is Anne from Luton, and I met with a group of people, some from Pembrokeshire and Wales and things like that, and we were energized by people's generosity and the fact that because people were so generous and because people had lots of ideas, they could get together and lead in their communities. And they spoke about things like activities similar to the Big Local. And also we were quite excited about the different online apps that were available for people to share within the community. Things like Olio and Too Good to Go and the neighborhood app, how it's managed to get people together. So we're quite energized about that, and the fact that there are forums for people to get together in the future and lead from the community rather than it being a deficit model.
Thanks very much. Would anybody else like to come in?
I'm happy to if no one else is jumping in.
Go for it.
Hi. So yeah, we had a great group. We actually had somebody from Ireland, England, Scotland, and Wales. We avoided the 6 nations, but it was really encouraging to just hear about the appetite there is for system change. We had people representing public sector bodies who are looking to do things differently and working. That we talked about how decisions throughout COVID became a lot easier. The multi-layered bureaucracy that used to exist was abandoned for a while, and that appetite for bringing agencies to work together as equal partners with residents, because the mutuals that grew up, the good stuff that happened, where residents led on change and good stuff, and there's a desire to harness that, and I'm wary of that because harnessing it is a dangerous thing, but I think it's actually working together with, and so agencies trying to come together and work as they did throughout the COVID lockdowns and the things that came from that. So a lot of enthusiasm, people willing to try new things like participatory budgeting, and looking into the skills and the talents and what is the resources that exist and what's strong in the communities, and then marry them together. So yeah, really good conversation and some good connections made, and learning from what has happened rather than reverting to type. And a health warning there as well of the danger of just going back to how it was when decisions were able to be made so much more efficiently and effectively, when some of the bureaucracy was removed.
Jessie, we have time for one more feedback. That is really, really interesting. Thank you. Jessie, we have time for one more.
Yeah, I think so. Would any of you like to come in? The chat's fantastic. Lots to talk about: energizing, being generous, intergenerational connections, changes. Lots of changes are energizing, working together rather than competing. The possibilities of being creative and not fearing change and coming together. Is there a last thought from anybody that they'd like to speak? Please do chip in.
I could say something.
Go for it.
I'm Mick from Leeds, but what a couple of people in our group came up with was about the importance of stories, and that's both the sort of wider stories, like the story of a community or the story of an estate over the years, as well as individual stories and how powerful they can be, but also that it's really critical sometimes to ask the right questions to stimulate those stories, so that it's not just the negative, oh, this is always it has been story, but asking the sort of questions of individuals and communities that really do highlight their engagement and the potential for change and the successes that those communities have done. And that both enthuses the community itself as well as sets a bit of a roadmap for the communities. And I think in our sharing of stories, we were doing that for each other as well.
Great, thanks. One more comment from the chat was about thinking local, small scale projects, which echoed with your small sparks comment earlier, Mick. Sue.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. We've run out of time. Some great ideas there that we've captured, and looking forward to the rest of the Jamboree, and I hope you enjoy it and it continues to be so stimulating and enjoyable. Thank you very much. I think we're now going to break for a 3-minute stretch. So
it's not a break. I'm going to do the stretch with everybody.
Are you okay? Yeah. Sorry about that. No, I thought the stretch was where we stretched up. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so hiya everybody. I'm Jill. I'm from Wigan in the north of England, and I'm involved in our local mutual aid group, Springfield and Beach Hill Community, where we've been using ABCD to connect with everybody. So welcome. I was asked to do a little bit of a stretching exercise and maybe a little bit of fun. So here we go. So my invitation to you, stand up if you feel like it, or remain seated if you feel like it, but I think we could all do with a little bit of a stretch. So I'm just going to stand up myself. I'll just push it back. There you go. So we're just going to start off just by bringing our arms together into a point at the top. And then we're going to bend over to the side. And as we do, we're just going to bend our arms inwards. And then open our arms out and connect them together. And then we'll do that again. So we'll go up to the top, bend our arms in and move to the side, feel that stretch, open our arms out, and then bring them together. And I'm just going to share my screen now. And my invitation to you is to move in however way you feel and join along if you'd like to with the words.
Citizen, there's no need to feel down. I said citizen, pick yourself off the ground. I said citizen, murder in this great town. We just need to start with what's here, citizen. There's lots of places to go. I said citizen, focus where there is hope. Look for strength here, and I know we will find everything we need.
Everybody in?
It's fun to be at the ABCD Jamboree. We have everything in the places we live. Treasure is everywhere. It's fun will be at the ABCD Jamboree. You'll be surprised what you see when you start sowing seeds. You can do whatever you feel. Community, are you listening to me? I said community. What do you wanna be? I said community. You can make it your dreams, but you got to know there's one thing no one does it all on their own. We need connections, expand who we know, and just start there using ABCD. And I know that great things follow. It's fun to be at the ABCD Jamboree. We have everything in the places we live. Skills and gifts to give. It's fun to be at the ABCD Jamboree. You'll be surprised what you see.
It's on there, it's in there for order.
Whatever you feel.
Thank you, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that a little bit. Apologies to any fans of the Village People. Clearly, I'm not the best singer in the world, but I hope you enjoyed it a little bit. I'm just going to hand you over now to Hannah and Jane.
Thanks so much for that, Jill. I'm so glad my part wasn't to get up and dance in front of everybody. I'm Hannah. I'm a community builder in Denny in central Scotland. Jane, who is very much a community connector in Denny, has kindly agreed to double up with me today to introduce our next speaker. I'm really, really happy to have her here as my wing woman to keep me right. We're excited to introduce Katie Kelly as our next speaker. Katie is the Deputy Chief Executive of Safer Communities in East Ayrshire Council. Heavily influenced by ABCD, she led and implemented the innovative Vibrant Communities approach. Important to get that right. Vibrant Communities approach as part of East Ayrshire's transformation strategy.
Today, Katie is going to share with us some stories from her 9-year journey towards changing culture within the council to adopt ABCD and co-production based approaches. Katie is passionate about finding ways to say yes to the communities that she serves, and we're looking forward to hearing more from her today.
Thanks so much, Hannah and Jane. It was fantastic to meet you earlier this week. It feels like a long time ago, and we got into a right gossip. Thanks so much, everyone, for inviting me along. Even the lead up to this conference, I've made new connections, and they've been outstanding, and I think I'll keep them for a long, long time. When time allows, I'm going to Denny to visit, and these guys are going to come and visit me. They've got amazing stories to tell. Maybe another time Jane will tell you about the Snowdrop Cafe. It was a story that blew me away. Also, it's been great to catch up with Cormac. I first met him back in 2011, and he totally inspired my thinking as a public servant and about how I could be a better public servant, and I'll talk a wee bit about that. And also, I'm absolutely delighted to have met Sonny from Colombia, who's our poet that's here today, and she's already done some presenting. And again, I just was blown away by her enthusiasm and her talent and her skills, and I'm looking forward to hear the poem later on. I'm hoping it's not a limerick that it rhymes with Kelly, or I could be in trouble. So thanks so much for having me. A wee bit just about East Ayrshire first, because it just sounds somewhere, where is it? It's kind of southwest central Scotland, and there's 3 Ayrshire authorities. There's north, south and east, and I know we've got colleagues here, I think, from north and south too, but east are the poor relatives because we haven't got the seaside. We're landlocked, and we're always gutted about that because we love the sea. So one time, myself and some of the communities we serve brought a whole load of sand into our biggest town, into Kilmarnock, into the town centre. We had a beach party just to show that we could be at the seaside as well. So a wee bit about me then. I've been working in public service for about 30 odd years, and the work that I've been doing over the last 7 or 8 or 9 years has been it's changed my life, and it's changed the lives of the people that I work alongside and the communities that I serve. And back in kind of 2011-12, as a council, we were really keen to change our relationship with communities. We felt it was too distant, it was too transactional, and people were seen as passive recipients, and the council was just seen as a body that held all the money and didn't really support much. So we wanted to change that, and we wanted to change it for a number of reasons. You know, at that time, we were really having massive issues around the economic downturn, and people needed services more and more, but the demand was increasing and we didn't have the resources there to do it. I think the biggest thing that was driving me at the time was inequalities, and some people live in our communities who, no matter, you know, people piling money into places and then the money dries up and things get worse. We had to do something different, and it's been a really exciting thing to be involved in. So, you know, it started off with just some really deep and we've got dogs and it isn't mine, so I don't know who's got the dogs in the room, who let the dogs out. That's another song from later on with YMCA, now we've got the dogs being out as well. So, you know, it started off with some really deep listening in our communities in a different way than we'd ever done before. Spent a long time, 18 months, just hearing what people thought of us and held them in, and didn't listen to answer. So actually, we heard some really hard things about our organisation. And we talked to groups, individuals, young people, older people, people from all over, anybody that wanted to come. And we gathered information. And the thing I remember most, there was one gentleman that said to me, Katie, there's real time and there's East Ayrshire time. When we want to do something, we've got a really big idea, or we're in crisis, you're so hard to navigate as an organisation. And that was a bit of a blow to me, but actually, you're absolutely right. We've totally over-engineered things in public service. We've got very, you know, stratified, and we've policies and procedures and all sorts of things. And actually, we've forgotten our basic business, which is to serve the people that we live in. And I was saying at the earlier group there, one of the biggest light bulbs for the workforce that I lead is, if we didn't have communities to serve, we wouldn't have a job. We need communities. We absolutely do. And when we go home at night, we are the community. What makes us different? We're not different at all. We're actually, so there's this whole thing about, you know, changing how we do things and moving forward. So a big part of it was about what we heard from our communities, and they told us quite honestly what they thought of us, held a mirror up, wanted better help at navigating, wanted more of a say in how they do things, and wanted to have their own ideas and hopes and dreams and their own plans, and for us to work alongside them to help them to deliver them. And coupled at that time, I'd been looking into some work across the world, and asset-based community development thrilled me. Some of the work that Cormac and John McKnight were leading right across South America, all over the world, and that's a testament today. We've got people with somebody from South Africa in one of our groups, which I was thrilled about. But the approach is straightforward and simple and beautiful. It's about unlocking skills and talents. It's about changing power. It's actually just about us having the best, happiest, healthiest lives we can have. And there's nothing complicated about that. And I think there's been an overcomplication. So we wanted to embed asset-based community development in the approach and embed what people had told us they wanted from us. And the third influence at that time was Sir Harry Burns, who at the time, some of you, the Scottish people will know him. He's an amazing man. He was the Chief Medical Officer in Scotland at the time. And he was a surgeon, but he talked about people having control over their own lives. And if people had self-determination, they can live happier, healthier and longer. People feel controlled or powerless. It is awful. So actually, how do we build that into things as well, where people have a voice, but not just a voice? That's, you know, we don't give anybody a voice. It's letting people be themselves and have hopes and dreams. So a lot of things happened at that time, and we tried to look at how our whole organisation could change. It wasn't a pilot, it was just a different way of working. And so we brought together initially a smaller staff group of about 100 people to work differently from right across council, different types of roles, community workers, even a lawyer, and people who we turned out to work alongside communities to do things differently. And over the years, that's grown now to a good half of our organisation, our frontline workforce, housing officers, bin men, are empowered to work in a different way to serve. Their job descriptions are secondary, but the first thing is that they serve people the best way they can, and also just share their own skills and talents. So a lot of our people, about 76% of our staff, live in East Ayrshire, and they've got incredible skills and talents and deep love of place. So actually it's how we can blur the roles between the job that they do and the people they serve and the talents they can bring. So it's been an incredible journey for us, and we're still on the journey. We're not there yet. If I was doing a big presentation at this moment, you would see a helicopter taking a dog for a walk. Again, like this one from Cormac. And at the whole point I use this with groups of staff is that we've over-engineered solutions to everything. We've done things for all the right reasons, but actually the cost of doing some of what we do in terms of emotional costs and financial costs is the wrong thing. People can't be fixed. People need to have the power and strength to work alongside each other and to heal, and then to focus on strengths and love. And that's the basis for what we do. And I would like to think in East Ayrshire that we're still on a journey, but we've moved much more away from deficiencies to strengths and assets. We've moved away from fixing problems to focusing on solutions and what's brilliant about what's already there. We've moved away, trying to move away from grants to look at investment for long-term change and to look at keeping pounds in the community. We heard from Dean in the group I was in last about really wanting to generate income locally so that people could regenerate for themselves, community-led. We've got fewer services now because communities are working alongside us. And I think for me in the past, it was very much about, there was this whole culture of people as clients and customers and service users. Those words are not representative of people who are equal. So we like to talk about citizens and neighbours and co-producers. We're all people together. We've all got something to bring. And I think, but for me, a big thing is not about fixing people, it's about developing, and people are the answer, not projects and not programmes. People are the answer, that's where it comes from. So that's been a change in philosophy, and we're still not there yet. But what does it look like in East Ayrshire then? So I suppose, the way that we've worked alongside in East Ayrshire, there's about 120,000 people live there, and there's probably about 30 natural communities. That's the other thing. Nobody says they come from East Ayrshire. It was made up as an administration. That's another joke, isn't it? We make up names so we can administer things. And, people in East Ayrshire are proud of the villages and towns that they come from. So the big piece of work we did here was actually to work alongside people where they naturally identified with, and then try to harness that love of place using a kind of community-led action planning approach, not council plans, but an approach that's been used by really good colleagues in Star that use work in some of the country parks and the Loch Lomond, and they brought that methodology to our communities. And we bring together a lot of people, and then they go round all the doors in the community and get people to engage with a survey that they develop themselves, and they carry out interviews with businesses and young people, and then they develop a whole range of priorities that local people think are important. And the council's role and partners' role is alongside them, whatever they need, but we don't run it, and it's not up to us what's said. Then there's a big event held, a voting event, and it's a party usually, and hundreds of people turn up to that. There's usually young people singing. They're run for and by communities. It's not one of those council events that we've all been to where people with suits sit behind a top table and everybody sneers at them. This is a joyful time, and we've done this 20 odd times now. We've got 20 odd action plans that our communities are so proud of. And in the action, people then vote, and we get bigger turnouts for these voting events than we do for some elections, because it's for and by local people. Then we kind of work out what the priorities are alongside the communities, and they publish their own plan with photographs they've taken, designed it themselves. They tell what they love about their community, what they hate about it, what their hopes and dreams are, and what their plan is for the future. And then they launch the plan. And when the communities launch the plan, the council and the health board and all those people are in the audience. We're listening. We're not on the stage. They're telling us what they want. And this is what Cormac taught me, and it's stayed with me all these years. And those plans say what communities want to do for themselves. They don't need us. We're in the road. We're actually causing trouble. They need our help to do alongside them, and what we should be doing for them. And those three questions absolutely still resonate all the way through. Some of our communities are now on to their second 5-year action plan, so it's been so exciting. And it's given people a kind of, it's not been about money, it's about how big people can dream. So the plans are in place, and a lot of it, there's been community gardens emerged. 55 of our council assets are now run by communities, and they're run much better than we would ever have run them. They're busier, they're brilliant. They're everything from a football pavilion to a community centre to recently a big secondary school that's now been taken over by social enterprise. We work alongside, we don't give you the keys and run away, but the communities run these things better. They know what they want, you know, that it's their place, you know, it's their budgets, it's their place, and it's about how we work alongside them. So we've had asset transfers that have been fantastic, the community plans are there, and they've led to some incredible things. They've led to whole neighbourhoods being changed because communities have been involved in it, hanging baskets, big jamborees like this, lots and lots of fun events. And, you know, a couple of stories, I love telling stories, and I'll try not to go in too long and I won't overrun, but, you know, the community of Ochiltree is a really interesting one where there was an old community centre there, and it was done, built in the 70s, flat roof, and, you know, we were really struggling to afford to keep it going, and we could have handed it over to the community, but they said, no, knock it down and give us the land. We want the land and we're going to raise money if you work with us. And so, you know, they've raised nearly £2 million and they've built their own community hub that's got a wee cinema in it, which is brilliant. And it's got a cafe that people come along to. And I now rent rooms from my community. I ask them if I can have a let, please. And sometimes they say no, and they probably charge me a lot. So it's total change of power. But actually, that's where those facilities belong, in the hands of the community. Also, communities working in this way have attracted in East Ayrshire nearly £6 million that the council couldn't have got into doing lots of really exciting, brilliant things. It's brought a lot of confidence to communities, and the more they've succeeded and linked with each other. We have big events like this where all the communities can share their stories and their trials and what's been great. And then they'll say, well, if that community can do this, so can I. I can take on a community, I can do those different things. So some of our communities now are starting to try and generate income and do things very differently. And I shared last night that Cormac, one of my favourite communities, I shouldn't have a favourite, but it was one of the first to have a plan. They were the finalists in their Urban Regeneration Fund Awards last night, a big national fancy awards ceremony. We're all done up in line for the most improved place. And I'm so very proud of them. Ex-mine in town, a cracking community. And every community is different. They might all have a plan, but it's about their hopes and dreams. And the council's role then is to go alongside them, help them to invest and change, and also for us to, you know, for them to say, well, we don't want you to put money into that. We don't want those staff, but we want you to work this way. And it's so exciting, and underpinned again by participatory budgeting. We're up now nearly £1 million where communities have decided how that's spent, and we don't come in and run it. We give that money to the communities and they run their own event. And the early sessions were brilliant. The first one was in New Mills, where people from the community to go up onto the stage in the hall and present why they should get some money. And the top one of the day was the older ladies that ran the soup kitchen, and they were all dressed up with fancy hats, and they won an award of 120 quid to buy pots and pans. And people said to me, oh, how are you going to monitor that grant? And I said, well, I'll go and have a plate of soup. And I did, and I could see the pots and pans in action. So it's been incredible. It's been an incredible journey. We've still a long way to go. But a big bit I realised quite quickly as well was that it was no good doing this if it was only a small number of council employees that were working in this way. We had to make it bigger. We had to get more people empowered. So it's not just about that, even power, it's about people feeling free to do the right thing, trusting people to do the right thing, not telling people what to do, not a permission culture, but actually we're all people together just trying to do our best. And so we've been doing lots of work with our workforce to make them feel that they can do the right thing. And some of our outdoor guys now who do the grave digging and cut the grass, they told me they didn't need a boss anymore. They just wanted to work alongside the community. They didn't need a service level agreement. So we put that in the bin in front of them, and they're in empowered teams now right across East Ayrshire, and they decide alongside the community where to plant, what to cut, and what happens with the beautiful green space. And nothing bad has happened. A lot of people said this will never work and it's dangerous and it's risky. I was talking to Cormac a lot about risk, but actually we're just people. We don't make cars, we don't measure things, we just do the very best we can to serve. So really from my perspective then, the big thing that's happened now is that when we came into COVID, it was incredible. Within 48 hours, we had a big call to action. And I know I've got some people in the room that I've seen that from East Ayrshire, and they'll absolutely tell you this was incredible. So we called out to our communities, 23rd of March last year, we're nearly coming up for a year. We went into this lockdown and I thought, oh, we're in trouble. People are going to be in trouble. So we asked our communities to help. We said, please help. And within 48 hours, we had 120 community resilience groups, all the groups we knew. And then we said, what do you need? don't tell me, do you need money in your bank account? If it's to buy stuff, it'll be there in 24 hours. We got that straight into their bank accounts. Do you need an electric car? What do you need to be able to serve to do this together? And to me, it's been the most humbling experience. Yes, our communities are running buildings and developing themselves and winning awards and making us proud, but I've never been prouder in my whole life of how we've looked after each other during this time, shoulder to shoulder, and no boundaries, no barriers, what's needed, how do we work alongside each other. It's a different way of doing things. It's not processual. Some people get a wee bit nervous about working in this way. But actually, if you look back to the work of Hilary Cottam, who's really interested around radical help, public service was set up after the war. It was set up in a hierarchical way, and it was for all the good reasons. It was absolutely brilliant work at the time, but the societies that we serve together have changed. They don't need it. We don't have the same kind of society. We've got a digital age here we are today, and this is all working. We have people who suffer from addiction. We didn't have the same prevalence of that then. We have people with long-term medical conditions. We didn't have that then. People need served in a different way. And actually our job is to find out what makes people's hearts sing and then help them to achieve that. So I think that is a big whole system change, and it's changed dramatically, and it's been the most rewarding time in my career. I've done loads of jobs. I love people, and the most exciting thing, and I was talking to a colleague earlier on from housing, is I took over as head of housing and people worried sick because I knew nothing about housing, but I was really loved the people that lived in the houses, and that's changed the whole service because their job used to be about collecting rent and checking things were allocated, and now their job as neighbourhood coaches is to be alongside people to see how they can help them live their best and happiest life. It isn't all easy. We've had big problems along the way, and we've moved at the speed of trust. Some communities have been ready to come with us, and some have said it's that council, we're not coming with them, it's going to take a wee while. But actually, the more other communities horizontally connect with each other, we step further and further back and come when we're called to help. That's the role that we have going forward. So our response to COVID's been incredible, and I've been so very proud. We all have. It's been a terrible time. It would be a crime if we come through the other end of this COVID-19 experience and didn't change things and didn't learn from this experience and hardwire some of the amazing love and kindness that we've seen. We shouldn't ever do the same things again. It's exposed some of the worst poverty that I've seen, and I can't, and it's something that Jane said to me before when she was starting up the Snowdrop Cafe, once she knows there's a need there, she can't ignore it. Once I've heard or seen something, I can't unhear it. So I suppose this movement of asset-based community development is the way forward, and it's about spreading the word and connecting people further, and this can be done at scale. I'm an example of that, how this can be done at scale. So hold on to what you're doing, because it can get bigger and bigger, and this can become the new norm. So I think I'll stop there, because everybody that knows me, and there's a few people in the room, know my granny was Irish, and I'm terrible for talking. I never shut up. So I'm going to shut up now, and I'm going to be happy to take any questions or answer in any way I can. And thanks so much for letting me out. I've been leading the response in East Ayrshire, and I've been working right the way through this 7 days a week, like I know many of you are. And this is me using a different part of my brain today. So I'm not worrying about outbreaks in prisons and trying to move workforce about. So I'm delighted to be at a jamboree. You've got no idea. The smile on my face has been massive all day. So thanks very much, everyone. I'll stop there.
Katie, thanks so much. This is just absolutely wonderful. You give us all hope. There's hope for bureaucrats. I think you're more a citizen than a bureaucrat, though. It's wonderful. We're going to have to move on, unfortunately. I think if people have questions, they can definitely raise them in the chat. And we're going to move on now to Glyn and Tamador, who are going to set up a conversation with a view to kind of coming near the end of today's session. But we will get a chance to chat with Katie as we go. So over to Glyn and Tamador. Thanks a million, Katie. It's wonderful.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. It's just an amazing experience. Being part of today is just changed my life. I just want to thank Cormac and Asset-Based for Community Development for not only changing my life but saving my life. Being part of Asset-Based Community Development over the last 6 years, I've not gone back on drugs or drink. I've not been back on. I've got mental health problems. I've not been sectioned over the last 6 years. So being part of my community has enabled me to stay well with my community. It's enabled me to be part of my community every single day. And now I feel valued, I feel wanted, I feel needed, I feel the compassion that people in this room have given me today. So it's just an absolute amazing feeling. I just wanted to tell people that. The part of the session that I'll be delivering today with Tamador is wants and offers. So we've all got wants and offers, we've all got needs, we all need things that about giving and receiving. So what we want to know today, we want to know what you want, what you need. We want to know what your wants, want to know what your offers are. So what I'd like to do is invite you into Cormac's going to put you into rooms, 3 or 4, and tell people, share people your wants and offers, what you need for, what do you want from us, what do you want from each other, what do you want from community asset development, and basically share your ideas. So that's where we're going to go. We're going to go into breakout rooms, and we're going to come back after 13 minutes, 12 minutes maybe, and then I'm going to pass on to my colleague Tamador. Then I'm going to come back at the end and finish the session off.
Beautiful, Glenn. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cormac.
See you in 12 minutes. I'm muted. Are you there, PTR?
I am, yes.
Peter, just a quick one, Pete. You're introducing Sunny. I'm just wondering, I can't seem to find her poem for some reason. Do you have it?
I don't. I was assuming she had it.
Yeah, she has it, but she's on a phone, so she can't. It's okay, I'll find it.
No, I honestly didn't receive a copy of that. Apologies.
No worries at all. Sooner did I go looking for it and it popped up. That's perfect. Okay. Just have that ready. So after you do an introduction for Sunny, I'll just pop her poem up on screen as she recites it.
Right. And is she available still to recite it? Yeah.
She is. She's
right.
Just coming in. The device she's coming in from isn't allowing her to share, so it's fine.
Right,
we'll do that for her.
Super.
Sean, any questions coming through YouTube or Facebook that we should pay attention to?
No, there isn't any more questions. Just people posting where they're watching from. We've got a John watching from Portlaoise on his tractor in Ireland. We've got some from Wales. We've got some from Australia. So welcome, people.
Welcome, folks. Welcome, John from Portlaoise and our friends from Australia. It's interesting to think about this, that the one thing you can say probably with a great degree of confidence about every community without exception is that there are gifts in that community. And the other thing that you might say is that many of those gifts are not yet visible. So I think what we're talking about today, whether we're in Portlaoise or we're in Port Phillip or we're somewhere in Australia or Singapore, or I've seen a number of different folks call in from different countries, and we're delighted to have you with us. But I think we're all curious about the same thing. How do we make the invisible gifts visible? And then how do we connect them fruitfully? You know, one of the great tragedies in life, I feel, is, and Sean, you might just keep an eye on our time here because we're very, very tight. We're about 3 minutes into the breakout, are we? Give or take? Yeah, give or take. So we need really, well, we ought to come back in 9 minutes. So just give a heads up if I'm rambling. But I think one of the things that really strikes me as a great tragedy in human life is that you can live your life with gifts that you didn't know you had and that nobody around you knew you had and therefore never received. And it's been striking me as I've kind of tried to make sense, as I guess everybody else in the world is, of what's happening at the moment. And particularly after my mother died, what I took great solace from was the wisdom of ancients and elders, even still today, actually, in Indigenous traditions, which we have a great privilege of working with in the work we do as nurture development. But listening to elders, I was listening to an elder from New Brunswick, one of the chiefs, and he said that what we're going through in mythological terms is a rite of passage. And he shared that in his traditions and in his culture, that rites of passage had 3 phases. The first phase is physical distancing, where you actually become distanced from members of your community. And he said the meaning behind that, or the purpose behind that, is you sometimes need distance to discover your gifts. Right? The second phase is a trial, something that disrupts, something that stretches, something that makes you think about life in a fresh way. So a trial. And something that draws out anti-fragility and resilience, you see? So that's the second phase. And the third phase is homecoming. Now, the idea in the first 2 phases is that you discover your genius. And genius comes from the word geni, which is North American or North African word, geni. And genius is the gift that you have, which will only make sense when you give it to a community. It's not something that's going to be used to make your bank account bigger or to make you famous, although it could, but something that's about you recognizing that happiness doesn't just come from within, it actually comes from between. It comes from our connection to each other, our connection to the land, our connection to economy, our connection to associations, and our connections to people we don't like, to people whose opinions we find offensive. So those 3 cycles are important. And in a way, these moments, these conversations are a kind of a homecoming. Because as you go through the first couple of phases, there can be suffering and there can be pain and there can be doubt. But actually, that's okay. So this Jamboree gives me great sense that, you know, there's immense anti-fragility. And I use the word anti-fragility, not resilience. Resilience is great. Bouncing back and coping with challenges is important. But anti-fragility is even more useful as a term, because anti-fragility basically says that the more we're stretched, the more we're challenged, the more we innovate and we grow as human beings. And that's been our story for 70,000 or more years as we emerge from the Rift Valley. These are the phases we're going through. So I think there's a great opportunity really for learning and innovation. We're hearing that today. So it's fantastic. It's fantastic to be part of this. We should probably think about sending people a 2-minute warning, I'd say, and bring people home, I think, at this stage. What do you think? Let's see how folks are doing.
They're about 5 minutes before they need to come back.
Are we 5 minutes? Oh, that's grand.
Yeah.
Okay. Pete, we have 5 minutes. Can I invite you maybe to share what's striking you about the conversations that you're
Absolutely. It was something I was actually going to share with you. In my sort of work life recently and in my university life, and again today, I'm hearing an appetite for people to come together and try and sort of generate or share the type of questions, better questions, that will uncover those gifts and assets. I think people are they're definitely sort of buying and they're definitely enthused and energized by ABCD, but then they're sort of coming up against, but how do you do this? How do you sort of translate this into the community? And a big thing I'm noticing is the questions. People want to know sort of what questions can we ask? How can we ask better questions? And I think it may be worth sort of bringing people together with that. And it could be a sort of organic movement. It doesn't have to be one event. It could be, you know, a constant sort of sharing and sort of, you know, building up of a bank of sort of really useful questions, you know.
Yeah, it's a great offer, actually, given that we're talking about wants and offers. Maybe that's an offer to put out, Pete, if it makes sense to you, you know. But I think that really resonates, the idea of asking better questions rather than focusing on the answers. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
That would
And
be
I
very
think
useful.
sometimes you only realize that when you hear somebody else asking a really sort of powerful question, and you, all right, you know, I'll keep that one.
In your context, Pete, give us a little sense of you know, how ABCD plays out in your work, in your context.
Yeah, well, I moved to a new job in October, Cormac. I'm working alongside Irish Travellers, and there was a huge amount of distrust and, you know, a sense that they'd maybe been treated badly by services and institutions, you know, in the past. And so it's a huge barrier to sort of to coming together and being together and sort of relationship with each other. So I suppose it was a sort of dual sort of strategy I had to try and ease into the organization, was the national occupational standards and a lot of the work that we did on our training around ABCD. And we started looking at and investigating how we work and the language we use and the invasive paperwork that sort of funders were expecting us to use, and challenging those things on that side. But then also sort of saying, well, in order to change, we can't just sort of replace it with our own ideas. So we're going to have to sort of go and be with travellers and ask them, what is it you like to be called? And, you know, what labels do you sort of like and you don't like? And what do you expect from us? And what is it that you're already doing here that you sort of feel that we could sort of supplement rather than sort of replace? You know, so there's been a sort of shift in it's from sort of service delivery to sort of community development, and it's slow and it's a process and it's messy, but that's how it's playing out at the minute.
Oh, beautiful.
We are starting to see the sort of beginnings of sort of better relationships.
It strikes me that what you're describing is serving while walking backwards, a kind of leading by stepping back, so you can create space rather than being just about service provision and having the answer.
To be honest, Cormac, half the time I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. You're just sort of trying to sort of maybe sort of do the right thing and hope that it works out, you know. And but it's messy.
And it's courage to relocate authority, you know, to say to people, actually, you direct how I can be useful to you.
Yeah.
That takes courage.
The big difficulty is as well when you move into a larger organization as well. It's not just your sort of willingness to sort of relocate authority. You have to get sort of buy-in from a lot of other people as well. You know.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. It's messy.
Real heresy. Well, Pete, I think folks are back now, so let's move on to welcome our resident poet.
Okay. Well, I'm Pete. I'm from Belfast in the north of Ireland, or Northern Ireland, however you wish to express it. And it's my great pleasure to introduce Sonny Quintero, who is a poet, cultural promoter, community connector, dreamer, change maker, and founder of Newham Poetry Group. So I invite Sonny to share a poem she's written for the Jamboree.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Pete, for lovely introduction. Firstly, before I read the poem, I would like to thank every single person that I meet. I need to say that you give me inspiration, not just for a poem, you get me inspiration for my life, also for my community, work. I love every single moment that I spent with all of you. It was amazing. You know who you are. Almost all of you that I was talking with are in this jamboree. So here is the poem. I hope the poem honor the beautiful inspiration that you get me. At home, we may be cake decorators, writers, or dreamers. We may be English, Bangladesh, Albanian, others. We may be silenced voice who come from a place of pain or happy hearts. We may be all and more when we are away. But here, we all are actors of the action, creators of creativity, builders of bridges, people of community, music in a jamboree. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonny. I'm going to give you a wee clap. Thanks very much. Jill?
Beautiful. Let's do this, Jill. Let's just double back and take maybe 5 minutes of feedback from the conversation that folks have had. Just really conscious of not losing Sani's voice in the poem. And she wrote that poem for us, inspired by us. So it's really important. And I think it's a nice entry back into Tamador and Glyn's harvesting now as we come to the end of wants and offers. So Glyn, why don't you and Tamador just host us briefly, maybe for about 7 minutes on wants and offers as we go to the end.
So I'll bring my co-host in, Tamador. Would you like to deliver your part now, Tamador?
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tamador Salim. I am from Bristol. I am one of the community development worker for Bristol City Council, and I am practicing the ABCD. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all and thank Cormac for giving me this opportunity to share my gift, because this is really, really meaning a lot for me. So what we're doing now, we still continue doing the want and give offer. And I would like you to use the chat box to put whatever, gather from your conversation, and that will be in 2 minutes. And after I stop talking, I will put my, my 2 minutes in. So the space is yours. Please use the chat box to put your comment. So I would like you to write a direct message to people who are the tool that you would like to offer your help and support to. Your 2 minutes is starting now. So just following the conversation that we've had in the breaking room and your discussion about the offer and wants, try to think about the tool people that you would like to write a direct message for them to offer your help and support. Thank you. I can see Rich offer on the chat box. Please continue, put your thought. Thank you very much. Oh, I'll stop it now. Thank you so much. May I ask you to come back together now? Thank you very much for your input and generous contribution. I can see the chat box is full of, great, generous offer. I would like you now to be back with my co-host Glenn, who will take us through the third part of the wants and offer exercise. Back to you, Glenn.
Thank you. Can I just ask the group to join me in celebrating Tramadol? Absolutely amazing. I know how nervous you were. I just want to tell you, Tramadol, absolutely brilliant. You nailed it. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. I'm so proud to have been working with you. And again, you're such an inspiration to me. Thank you very much. So again, oh, amazing, amazing, amazing. So again, on wants and offers, what I'd like to do now, because we haven't got much time, but I'd like to ask two people, if they'd speak up, please, take your mic off and speak out publicly your offer that you'd like to share with other people, that you'd like to give to other people. Is that okay? So two people to share, if that's okay. Cormac, I can't see hands. Can you see people who want to?
I'm keeping an eye now. I'll keep an eye out. Hang on a second. Don't see anybody. Just we have time for about one, maybe two people. Glenn, we'll have to wrap up then.
Is anybody there who would like to speak out?
I'm happy to, if nobody else is. I don't want to hug things. Currently supporting a big local area in Sheffield, Westfield, big local, and they're embracing this model that I have behind me called Start, the Heart of Your Community. And I'd love to share it with any community that's struggling to embrace local people and understand their values. Start is the skills, the talents, the abilities, the resources, and the time that exist. And this is local people having one-to-one conversations. And they come away from those conversations. It's not about the community. It's not about what's wrong. It's not about how they can fix it. It's about that individual and what's precious about them and why they are valuable. And they come away from those conversations buoyed, but the people taking the conversations collect that information and collate it and then join the dots and make connections in that community. And build upon it. And then you bring in the frontline workers, as has been talked about, the importance of them being equal partners in that process. And agencies, whatever agency it is, being part of starting the heart of the community. And that is just a process that's been developed over 20 odd years of doing this stuff badly and well and learning along the way. But it's just beautiful to see individuals' wealth and richness being brought out, and then that turning into real life activity in the community. So very happy to share more about that with anyone who's interested. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Might be a good time, Glenn, just given time we're losing people, to hand over to Jill to introduce Anna, our graphic artist. Thanks so much.
Please. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Glenn. So while we've all been really busy chatting away, Anna's been busy, as some of you might have seen, capturing some of the key learnings and key messages from our time together today. So using simple words and drawings. Anna, do you want to show us what you've been up to while we've been busy on the screen?
I certainly can. I'd be delighted to. And I think that I've been spotlighted, so you should all be able to see it. I'm just going to quickly swing across this so that you can see some of the detail. I've been capturing key messages and contributions throughout the day. So hopefully this will be a visual minute of the conversations that have been taking place, and I'll continue to work on it after we've all logged off from this. I think what I'd like to do actually is just tell you about some of the words that seem to be the threads that flow through the conversations. So there's been something about the hopes and dreams and people being able to self-organise, and that is affected by the relationships and making sure that people are able to collaborate. There's been things in here around learning, opportunities for change and having confidence to do that. And then over here, we're moving to what's happening in terms of the energy. Where is the energy? Where's the enthusiasm? And so that was the last conversation that you were having. So this will hopefully flow across the page, looking at what's new and where's the energy. Is it new energy? Maybe, I don't know. But I've thoroughly enjoyed capturing this for you as a record of asset-based community development jamboree for the UK. So there we go. I'm going to hand you back to really just to draw this to a close. And I think that I'll hand you back to Jill.
Thank you. That's amazing. It always amazes me how you capture everything that's gone on in such a beautiful way. So thanks for doing that and for sharing it with us. Cormac, are we ready to say our goodbyes?
I think we are. This has just been fantastic. Thank you all. Our host group today across the nations of the UK have proven, if there's ever any doubt, that when you put citizens at the heart of the matter, everything works out. And it's better, actually. It's much better to have the voices of local people at the heart of what we do. I don't like the term building back better. I prefer the term flourishing forward fairly. Today, we had a conversation about flourishing, and it was absolutely nourishing, fun, and there's a huge generosity in it. So big thanks to our speakers, big thanks to our host listeners, big thanks to our graphic artists, but most importantly, big thanks to you for showing up and being so authentic and so powerful in your voice, which is going to determine the future for the UK, I believe. So huge thanks. And all I'd say as we close is, remember, you don't need somebody's permission to do this. You don't need somebody's blessing to do this. And you don't need somebody's funding to do this. This revolution will not be funded. What you need is each other. So stay together, stay safe, but most importantly, stay in trouble. Thank you all very much. Can I invite our host listeners now? We're going to do a little call and response to close. So if our host listeners could unmute, and we're not going to say goodbye. This isn't a benediction, it's a commencement address. So what we're going to do is have our host listeners say, until next time, and your job is to respond with, until next time. So Glyn and Jill, everybody who's been a host listener today, you've been absolutely fantastic. All of our speakers, unmute, and as 1, 2, 3, until
next time. Until next time.
And all of you respond.
Until next time.
Friends. Until next time.
Time.
My only ask to you folks is that if there's somebody who feels generous enough to host the next conversation, host another jamboree, reach out to us and let us know. It's not meant to be hardship duty. It's a lot of fun. But if that's you, reach out and let us know. I want to pass this baton on. I'm not from the UK myself. So you've proven this is your movement. So the baton is over to you. I look forward to the next jamboree and being a guest. Until then, take care. Thank you all.
Bye. Bye.
Bye, Cormac. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
And our host listeners stay back, and our speakers just for a minute. I just want to thank you personally, if you have time.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, that was lovely.
We've already got offers to host the next one.
Is that right? Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Good. Do you know who they are, Jill?
It's Sadia Nakimira.
Okay.
Happy to host the next one.